the Enchanted Frogman of Beverly Hills. The golden sun of California began its slow descent behind the manicured hedges of Beverly Hills, but inside the Clampett mansion, peace was a rare commodity. Granny moved restlessly from the window to the door, her face etched with a level of concern that usually only accompanied a shortage of moonshine or a sighting of a revenue man. She turned to Jed, who was resting comfortably in his favorite chair, and let out a long, weary sigh. She told him that she wanted to see if Ellie Mae was home yet. Jed, with his usual calm demeanor, told her that he had told her before to stop worrying about Ellie Mae. But Granny was not to be placated so easily. She reminded Jed that his only daughter was out with a sailor. Jed nodded, acknowledging that he knew that. Granny then added with a sharp edge to her voice that the young man was not only a sailor, but he was also a frogman. Jed patiently replied that he knew that too, and he encouraged Granny to go on to bed, assuring her that Ellie Mae could take care of herself. Outside on the porch, the evening air was cool and sweet. Ellie Mae sat beside Mark Templeton, the young man who had captured her heart and Granny's suspicion. Ellie Mae told Mark that she sure did thank him for a wonderful evening. Mark, looking at the soft glow of the moonlight on the estate, asked if they could just sit there and talk for a while. Ellie Mae glanced toward the house and noted that she saw the light on in Granny's room, reckoning that the old woman was waiting up for her. Mark sighed, expressing his wish that Granny would stop worrying about him being a frogman. He noted that it really seemed to upset her. Ellie Mae reasoned that Granny probably figured it was kind of dangerous being underwater so much. Mark smiled gently and assured her that it was not all that dangerous. He described it as a fascinating new frontier to the unexplored depths of the ocean and expressed his hope to show it to her soon. Ellie Mae beamed, saying she would love to see it, and then she playfully asked if he supposed she could get Granny down there. Mark laughed, doubting it very much because the old lady was awful scared of water. Inside, the atmosphere was far less romantic. Jethro was glued to the television set in the parlor, his eyes wide with excitement. Granny stormed in, shouting that he had her in the parlor and calling Mark a fiend while telling him to be quiet. Ellie Mae rushed in to find out what was going on. Jethro, completely absorbed in the screen, explained that he was watching the late monster movie. He asked them if they had ever seen the creature from the slimy ooze. Granny pointed a trembling finger at the screen and declared that her cousin Ellie Mae was out with it. She watched as a monster on the screen grabbed a beautiful blonde girl, noting that the rascal did not know whether to take her to his world at the bottom of the swamp or to live in her world on a Park Avenue penthouse. Jethro cheered as the monster dragged the girl down into the slimy ooze, calling him a dandy. Jed walked in, shaking his head at the family, remarking that they were all hooked on freaks. As the movie ended, Jethro announced that the late monster movie was about to start, featuring the lizard that ate Philadelphia. Granny, feeling half worried out of her mind, realized she had to have somebody to talk to. She turned to Jethro and told him that his cousin Ellie Mae was out with a naval frogman, and in her mind, from the navel down, he was a frog. Jethro, distracted by the new movie, pointed out a vampire Batman, a green zombie, a werewolf, and a mad scientist, claiming they were all good guys. Granny threw up her hands in frustration, wondering what the use was. When Ellie Mae finally walked into the kitchen, Granny demanded to know where the frogman was and if he had tried to take her to a swamp. Ellie Mae denied it, but Granny insisted she run quick to the kitchen, cut a potato in two, rub herself good with it, and then bury it so she would not get warts. Jed finally stepped in, telling Granny to leave the girl alone and go to bed. Ellie Mae told her father that she had a fine dandy evening and that she and Mark were going on a picnic tomorrow. The next morning, Granny was the first one at the bank, waiting for the doors to open. She walked into Jane Hathaway's office, wearing a heavy raincoat and carrying a large umbrella despite the clear sky. Jane greeted her with a pleasant surprise, asking if she was there to make a withdrawal. Granny explained that she came to get some advice from Miss Jane because she was a smart woman. Granny confessed that she had been having bad dreams where Ellie Mae married a frog that was half man. Jane, trying to follow the logic, suggested it was like an aquatic centaur. When Granny asked what that was, Jane explained it was half man and half horse. Granny thought that was worse than being half frog. Jane then mentioned a satyr, which was part man and part goat, specifically mentioning Pan, the child of Penelope. Granny, horrified, wondered what Penelope could do for him. Jane explained that only Zeus could have changed him. Granny immediately asked if she could get that Zeus on the telephone, thinking he sounded like a fine doctor. Jane gently explained that Zeus existed only in Greek mythology on Mount Olympus. Granny was undeterred. If Zeus would not make house calls, she would have to rely on her own skills as a mountain doctor. She told Jane that she thought she could cure that frogman herself with a potion. Jane, humoring her, said that as long as it brought sound sleep, it should be efficacious. Granny, not knowing what that word meant, said she could always stop at a drugstore. On her way out, she saw Mr. Drysdale and told him that Jane deserved a raise for being so smart. Mr. Drysdale, always eager to please the Clampetts, promised that the moment Granny left, Miss Hathaway would get a raise. Once Granny was gone, he handed Jane a single rose as her raise and told her to get back to work. Back at the mansion, Ellie Mae was busy in the kitchen preparing for her picnic. Jed walked in and asked what she was making. Ellie Mae proudly announced that Mark liked spaghetti, meatballs, and garlic bread. Since she did not know how to make garlic bread, she had decided to make garlic donuts instead. She offered Jed one to taste, along with her spaghetti and meatballs. Jed took a bite and, with a brave face, told her it was outstanding. He suggested she go upstairs and get all prettied up in a dress while he packed the picnic basket for her. As soon as Ellie Mae left, Granny charged into the kitchen, declaring she needed the stove for a scientific medical experiment. She told Jed she had to throw together a prescription involving secret powders, herbs, and juice. She began chanting about the eye of a newt and the hair of a dog to cure the part of Mark that was a frog. Jed, knowing Ellie Mae's cooking might be a bit much for a normal stomach, found Jethro and asked if he knew where to get real Italian food. Jethro suggested Big Mama Nacarelli's. Jed told him to go there and fill a basket with spaghetti, meatballs, and garlic bread. Meanwhile, Granny finished her green potion. When Mark arrived for the picnic, Granny cornered him. She told him his eyeballs looked a mite bloodshot and insisted he drink her tonic. Mark explained it was just a sinus condition from being underwater, but Granny would not take no for an answer, asking him if he ever wanted to see her granddaughter again. Mark reluctantly drank the bitter green liquid, complaining that it was awful, though Granny insisted it was awful good. She asked if he felt a tingle in his feet, and Mark admitted he felt it everywhere. The picnic plans took a turn when Jethro returned with the food from Mama Nacarelli's, but admitted he had eaten it all himself because he was starving. Jed sent him back for more, but the confusion left Ellie Mae and Mark without a lunch. They decided to stop at the restaurant themselves. After they left, Granny found Mark's naval cap and jacket on a bench. In her confused state, she saw a large bullfrog nearby and became convinced that her potion had worked the wrong way. She wailed that instead of an old man, she had turned Mark into an old frog. She took the frog inside, placed it in a cage, and began treating it with a new red potion, hoping to reverse the spell. She told Jed that the frog had found a special place in her heart. Later that afternoon, Granny sought out Jane Hathaway again, asking how a person could turn a frog back into a man. Jane told her the classic story about the beautiful maiden who kissed a frog to turn him into a handsome prince. Granny's eyes lit up with hope. She rushed home and found Ellie Mae, telling her she had to do her a favor. She begged Ellie Mae to take the frog out of the cage and give him a big, sweet kiss. Ellie Mae was confused, asking what for, but Granny insisted that if she ever wanted to see Mark again, she had to do it. Ellie Mae, wanting to please her grandmother, picked up the frog. At that exact moment, Mark walked back into the room to retrieve his forgotten hat and coat. He saw Ellie Mae about to kiss a frog and asked what was going on. Granny, seeing Mark standing there in human form, cried out that it had worked and that they were touched by an angel. She was convinced her magic had saved the day, while Ellie Mae and Mark simply smiled at each other, happy to be together, regardless of whether there were any frogs involved. The sun set over Beverly Hills, leaving the Clampett family in their usual state of happy, harmless confusion, proving that love and a little bit of Granny's mountain magic could overcome even the strangest misunderstandings.